A year ago, we made wine from grapes we got from Costco.
How'd it do?
This is our table grape wine, and it is literally just table grapes that we got from Costco. And it is 11.6% with a 0.994 for its final gravity, which means this is dry. It's gonna be very dry. But we have to get it from this bottle into these glasses, which means we need the pour can.
Those who hesitate are lost. At least I think that's the phrase.
Something like that.
And that is apparently why I spill so often, is that I have concerns that I'm not doing it right. And I just gotta get in there and go for it because look, no spills.
You gotta commit.
Woo!
All right. On the color.
It is
It's a beautiful color. Perfectly clear.
It's like a pale golden.
Yeah.
It's
just gorgeous. I mean, there's nothing to that color that I would say is wrong. It does not look like you'd expect a wine made with all the stuff to look.
No.
It looks more like almost a rosé, but it's not pink. It's actually like
almost like a tinge of apricot color.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
It's an 11 on the clarity scale.
It's super clear. Super.
On the smell, it's unique.
It kind of reminds me of a Chardonnay. I'm getting like almost that buttery.
A little bit. Buttery can be not a great thing about fermentation.
Yeah.
I'm getting a slight like green note in there.
Yep.
I mean, you know, there's probably reasons why people don't use table grapes to make wine, right? You know, just saying.
Like right after I poured it, Brian's like, "Is that smell the wine?"
The aroma
and
was
I
very
said,
strong.
Yeah, it was the wine, and it kind of took us aback. We're like, "Is this a really bad thing? Is this a good thing?"
I'm getting a fruity smell. I'm just trying to place what the fruit is. I know it's grape, okay? And this is the funny thing about doing these tastings is you're going to get smells, tastes, and sensations that are different than what's actually in it because your brain is trying to fill in the blanks. So when it doesn't know what it is, it tries to associate it with something that you are familiar with. And that's why a lot of times you'll get odd flavor, well, not odd, you'll get different flavors in various things that were never in there. It's your brain filling in the blanks. And that's what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah. The alcohol is coming through on the aroma.
It smells like passion fruit to me.
I'm not getting that, but I can see where your brain might be reaching and go,
yeah,
passion fruit, sure.
All right. I mean, it's on the smell, I'm not overly excited. I'll just be honest.
It's a
an
little
unusual
too unusual.
And for a very dry wine, I don't know what.
I have some concerns.
All right, well, I'm going to taste
Let's
it.
get in there.
You ready? On the taste, it's got a lot more flavor than I thought it would have. It's got a lot more like viscousness to it. It's not watery.
And it tastes more grape on the taste.
It definitely tastes like a white wine. That's strange that there's that unusual smell. Now, when we say unusual smell, it's not a bad smell. It's not like we've seen some
that can't define.
Yeah, I don't know what that smell is, but it's not unpleasant. It's not gross or nasty or anything like that. It's just unusual and undefined. Now that I've tasted it, the smell actually comes across kind of more like the Chardonnay thing, like you're saying.
Yeah, I feel like...
Did we oak this? I don't know.
I don't remember.
We don't check, and there's a reason. Somebody the other day on one of our videos, they were like, you use the concentrate for this and the fruit for that. And I thanked them. I was like, yeah, you're right. And that's why we don't check. That way there's no bias. Although we were actually wrong. We guessed wrong. And that's okay, because I'd rather guess wrong than know and say, oh, it's this. And then that changes our opinion.
Right. My only remembrance of this was the massive amount of grapes that we had to deal with. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I remember about this. I don't remember anything else about the process.
Okay. After a couple of sips, the smell and the taste coincide.
think the reason why we couldn't place it is because we have a limited experience with white wines.
That's true.
We tend to get more red wines.
Mostly red stuff.
Right. So the white wines, I think Chardonnay is...
Riesling, maybe.
But
this is nothing like either one. I mean, it's not the same. Don't take it that, oh, we made it. No, we didn't. This is different. This is its own creation.
I think if we went into an in-depth exploration, of all the different white wines, we might be able to go, okay, it has parts of this and parts of that, because it's definitely reading as a wine, not.
Oh,
and
well, yeah.
I know that seems silly, and Brian's making fun of me, but it as you said before, it tastes more complicated than just some grapes you bought at the store.
This is complex. There's a lot going on here.
And that is really exciting to me, because that means that perhaps there is opportunity for using table grapes in unique and different fashions to not exactly get a varietal wine, because that's not going to happen. You need that varietal wine. There's so much, you need that varietal grape to make that varietal style wine. And there's so many things that go into it. As a gardener, I can babble hysterically at you about it, but that's not what this video is about.
The ground it was grown in and everything.
Yeah. Okay.
The smell now is coming across as grape to me. And it wasn't before. And if you think of it not as a white wine, think of it as the table grape itself. What did the table grape taste like? Now I get that smell. There's a very light fruity smell at the top, and then there's a richer ethanol, aged feel, a little more dull. That's kind of not competing with that, but they don't meld. You definitely get two different things, and that's what was throwing me.
Yeah.
And on the taste, it definitely comes through that way. Let me take a sip so I can walk you through it.
I think part of the reason why it was hard to get there is because these particular grapes were so sweet. That was what they were pushed as, being super sweet.
Right.
And so we have eliminated the sweetness thanks to our friends the yeast, because they turned it into alcohol for us.
Right.
So because there's the absence of that sweetness, but we're still getting that grape flavor, it was hard to place.
Yes, that's very true. And now I've totally forgotten my journey.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm gonna have more. It's all good. Do you want more? Okay. There is a little tiny bit of sediment in the bottom of this bottle, so I'm being very careful with the pour. But upon entrance, like I said, it's a little thicker than you would expect. It has more mouthfeel than you would have expected. And immediately I get kind of a semi-sweet plum-like taste. Not super strong, but it's a darker fruit. It's not a white, light grape. It's a darker fruit, a little deeper. But as it goes into like the mid-range of the mouth, now that's where the lighter, fruity grape flavor comes through. So you get that really interesting dichotomy going on. But I'm still getting the note of the aged, deeper fruit all throughout. It's like a sub note that just kind of flows right through. And then there's that lighter, fruity thing. And let me see what the finish is like. It's not as crisp of a finish as you might expect for a lighter, dry white wine. It's actually a little bit of a long, lingering finish.
Yeah.
Which, that's throwing me a little bit too, because usually a drier white is going to have a really crisp, refreshing, and a boom, in and out and gone. This, I'm still getting it on the exhale, and it is literally a combination of like if you had like the green grapes, like the green table grapes, and a plum, and you kind of take a bite from one of each. That's kind of what this is like. I mean, obviously it's not exactly the same. Throw in some ethanol, and there you go. But it has that deep, rich plum that isn't super strong, but it tastes a little aged, almost like a cooked plum flavor even. And then you have that really like fruity, light white grape. Really interesting. There's just a lot of layers here, a lot going on. I didn't really have high expectations for this. I
honestly didn't either, but I am pleasantly surprised. And I would say, based on just getting a bunch of table grapes and trying to make a wine from it. This was
Yeah, I mean,
exceedingly well done.
if you have the ability to get grapes in bulk like that, cheaply. I mean, I think we spent like, what did we, it was like $25 or $30, something like that. And we got 4 or 5 bottles out of it. Okay, it's reasonable, but if you can get them any cheaper, by all means, make your own. I don't know that this is going to be any better than a varietal of grape to make a specific wine type. I wouldn't call this a specific wine type. I would just call this like a house wine.
Yeah.
And I think from that perspective, there's nothing wrong with it. It's great. It's beautiful. It's actually, this would stand up to many white wines that we have had.
Yeah.
You know, commercially made white wines. It would stand up to those.
I know that's heresy for tons of people, but
it just does. I mean, a lot of homemade stuff, it's usually better than the commercial stuff because we don't have their restrictions. We don't have the standards and insurance reasons and tax reasons and government. We don't have all that stuff. So we can make it however we want it to be. We being the collective, we, you know, you're part of that. And when you do that, you open it up to a lot more creativity. We tend to make our recipes really simple and easy to follow so that you can modify them. Try it as is, and then you can always modify. Or if you've done this several times, you know how to modify it to your own tastes.
Speaking of modifications, this was a red grape that we used, but we did the math based, I think, on sugar amounts and grapes, which it really isn't as much as you may think. And that's why we had such a mass volume. But
wine grapes have more sugars than table grapes.
Our initial intent was to leave all the skins, everything in there, and just make it a big mess.
No room.
Well, it became a big mess. By that, we didn't have any room left. So that's why it is limited in color, because it would need all of those elements in the fermentation process to extract the color. But it's also why it's not a white wine, because there was some of those parts still in there. So it's kind of an apricot. I wouldn't even say it's a rosé. It's like an apricot color. The variation that I would probably want to do on this is to limit the amount of grapes, so that way I could maintain all of the grape elements. I would still want to obliterate them to make their parts,
freeze them,
more readily available to the yeast. I would probably then want to adjust for alcohol percentage by adding sugar. And I know...
I don't think we added sugar to this.
We didn't. And that's where we came up with the problem, because we were trying to be pure to the grapes. But to make a red grape wine from red grapes, you need all those parts, and because of the volume, blah, blah, blah. Right. So this is my variation on the theme.
We could just put more red grapes on it in conditioning phase to get more grape flavor and sugars that way too.
You could.
There's a lot of ways to go.
There's a lot of ways. There's so many ways. That was just where my head was going. But we need numbers now. So we're going to do our new number thing.
The duo scoring.
And so our first score is based on the process of making this wine and its final result. How well.
Someone suggested we call that the process score.
The process score.
Or the method score.
Or the method score, the quality
it talks about
score.
Quality is subjective still, but process, based on the process that we used, did this come out the way it should have? Okay. You know, that kind of thing. Like, what does this meet the expectation?
All right.
Based on the process.
Was it based on our initial expectation or our expectation throughout the process?
Well, you see, that's where it gets complicated, and that's where this is still a biased number, and that's why we have to give a score. But really, what you're taking into account with the process score is, did it ferment well? Did it stall? Did we run into issues? Is there a cloudiness issue? Are there off flavors? Were there stressed yeast? Did it have... Basically, was there any problems? It's kind of a simplistic score from that perspective. Was the fermentation as expected? Did it do what a fermentation's supposed to do? Were there any difficulties along the way?
Okay.
Based on method.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other one is totally just, how do you like it? You know. Do you have a score?
I do.
Okay, this is the process score, performance score, method score, whatever you want to call it. 1, 2, 3, 10. 8. Okay, I said 10. Why did you say 8?
I said 8 because initially we were going into this, that this was going to be a red
You are right.
wine.
You are right.
That was our intent.
Can I change my score?
And so based on our intent, we failed. And then the initial process of just dealing with that mass of grapes was just so annoying. And
I would
something
like
we
to
weren't
change my score
anticipating.
to 8. She's right. I forgot that part.
After that,
It went perfectly.
and to this point, it has exceeded expectations. They're just different than what our initial expectations were, but it is way, way much better a final product than I ever anticipated, even though it's not red, and that was my initial expectation.
So I'm changing my score to an 8. Because she's right. Well, you made perfect sense. And, you know, I don't see any problem with changing scores. My initial idea was, well, this fermented perfectly and everything about it is awesome. And it did. But I forgot.
There's that first
we
little bit.
intended to do it a little differently. And that's okay. You make adjustments along the way. That doesn't make it a less quality beverage.
No.
It's just based on our initial intent.
Yeah.
Where did it end up?
Yeah.
So that's okay. That's fair.
Right.
I can go with that.
Yes. So now personal preference.
Yeah. Now it's on to personal bias, personal preference, personal enjoyment. The PE score, not to be confused with phys ed. Do you have a number?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.5. This is why I love the duo scoring system because
It's a dry wine. It's a dry wine. That right there is going to knock it down a peg or two for both of us, and even more so for Brian.
5.5 pegs for me.
The only reason why I kept it up as high as I did is because, again, I'm immediately going to food pairings.
Yep, you would drink this.
And we tend to make red wines, and so those immediately go to things like
You're going to have this with pasta.
spaghetti or
right now.
chili or whatever. But there's this really great pasta that Brian makes that I've named artichoke pasta.
Yep.
And this would go lovely with that.
This would go lovely in that as well. Yeah.
I can even drink this with our pasta salad.
For me, 4.5 means it's almost one that I might go, yeah, I'll drink that. If she poured a glass for me to have with dinner, I'd enjoy it, but not something I'd reach for.
But if I were using wine glasses, I'd pour that much in Brian's and that much in mine, because that's just how it
I just
goes.
don't drink a lot of wine with food. I just don't do it.
All right, so there you have it.
As always, guys, thanks so much for watching and have a great day.
Bye-bye.